Hello everyone, I'm Gabriele Chiapparini. Welcome to this new episode of Small Photobook Cult. If you like our videos, please like them, leave a comment and let us know what you think. Please subscribe to the channel to stay updated on future videos. Today we will take a look at A Poor Sort of Memory, a powerful photography project about how our memories of growing up, especially the tough part, can be fuzzy and change over time. This project starts after returning to the childhood home in the Mojave Desert as a mother. The photographer used the camera to explore her past family experience, the personal trauma, the challenging and the loving moments. Welcome to the episode 18 of Small Photobook Cult. We are here with the photographer Tracy L Chandler. Hello Tracy, I'm really happy and glad to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And if you want, we can start from the project. What is a poor sort of memory about?
A poor sort of memory is a collection of photographs. Well, it's a photo book, but the work itself is me going back to my hometown in the California desert, where I use photography to investigate my past. And in doing so, I come up against the limitations of memory, as well as photography, and I'm in the process reminded of the perils of coming of age, including the specifics of my own upbringing.
And
that's kind of it in like a nutshell.
And why this title?
Yes, A Poor Sort of Memory is a quote that I pulled from Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is a series of books. In one of the books, it's called Through the Looking Glass. The White Queen says to Alice, "It's a poor sort of memory that only works backwards." I don't know if you know anything about this story, but in this story, there's an adolescent girl, and she's in this confusing, kind of aggressive world. It's very upside down and nonsensical. And she's asking this queen, like, how to find her way through. And the queen is telling her to remember where she is going. And Alice is like, how can I remember where to go? How can I remember in the past where to go in the future? And the queen kind of explains to her that memory doesn't just recall a fixed past, it also works forward. And it's kind of circular in that you can imagine things that have already happened, or you can remember things that haven't happened yet. And I know this all sounds very nonsensical, and it's this like lack of logic is jarring. But I think in that discomfort, there's an opening and a chance to reconsider memory and what we think we know and what we think is objective. And in that, maybe also who we think we are. That was a long answer to your question, but that's where I pulled the title from, A Poor Sort of Memory.
No, it works, and it's really interesting, I think. And also, I think it's really true, the fact that you can remember something about the future in some way. There is also, I don't know if you ever read something about Mark Fisher.
No, tell me.
He said this stuff about, I think the name is ontology, something like that. It's a bit a different concept, but I found it all the time really curious. It's work mainly for people born in the 80s, and it's this kind of melancholy for a future that never come. Like we born with this idea of the future that will be I don't know, beautiful and amazing, and so also having this kind of melancholy for something that we had in our mind but never really happened in the real world. So I think all this kind of concept with the memory and the melancholy also linked to the memory also of things that never happen or that you imagine it's always really fascinating. Probably the topic of Mark Fisher, it's a bit different from yours.
Yes, but I love the word that you're using, melancholy. I feel like that's a very big tone for me throughout this work.
Yeah, I felt it.
Yeah. And I feel like what you're saying about the only antidote to kind of holding on to what you think things should have been, or the way that you remember them as being better than now, is to just be present with what is it's the only way to like kind of get out of that trap of always sort of like living for the past or the future. And so it's sort of like how we're relating to time. And I think that that's an important part of for me in this work as well, is how am I relating to time? And time and photography are flawed friends.
We can start also to go through the book if you want. I start with the first question, and it's why did you decide to transform your past into a photographic project? And mainly why?
Yeah, I was going through a bunch of life changes. I had become a parent, and I think in having that responsibility, I wanted to understand where I came from and how I got to be me. And so then I could maybe do better for my kid this time around. Photography for me has always been a way of either two things. One is like, it's a way to connect to the world. It like helps me have structure and to mitigate the vastness of everything. It gives me a way to frame and organize. It also gives me an excuse to go look at something. If it's another person, it gives me a way to connect that kind of keeps my hands busy at the same time. And so to do something like go back and look at my own upbringing was sort of a daunting task. I grew up through a series of traumas, and having to face all that, I think doing it with photography was a way to help me sort of like mitigate that process. Additionally, I had just a few years before embarking on this work, lost all of my own photography work and all of my family photographs in a storage fire. And so I think one of the efforts of going back to make this work was to also literally replace the photographic objects that I had lost. I came up through skateboarding, and all of the work that I had done in skateboarding and in bikes and other things that I was into, I had always made pictures in those contexts. Those were all gone. All of the family albums were gone. My father passed away when I was a kid, and any pictures of him that I had were gone. And so I think I was sort of left without these objects. And what I ended up making and what is in this book in no way looks like and or replaces those objects in any sort of literal way. But I think I did go back and make pictures concerned with my past and using memory. And I did come away with a new photographic object. And this sounds weird, but it's almost more true than the stuff that I had before. Like this new work, this photo book is not in any way a document or a sort of documentary of my story. But it is kind of based on a true story. And so for me, it has the elements of that within it. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No. It was really good. It was really interesting. One of the questions that I want you to ask is if you ever thought to use the archive, but I think the reply is no.
Well, we can talk about one of my favorite photo books ever is Larry Sultan's Pictures from Home.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And in that book, he's working with archival material, and he's having a conversation with his parents, and there's an interview in there with his father. And there's all of these elements in that book that I don't have in my book. I mean, my work is very different, but just thinking about how he was looking at his parents, and it was just it's a very different work. So it's not really apples to oranges, but I was just I didn't have the things to work with. I didn't have my father to interview. I didn't have the images of him to look at. So I had to make stuff up.
I think it's amazing when you have a big archive that you can go through, and but also in my case, for example, my father was used to take pictures, but just family pictures, and just for a short time in our life, and it's something that I miss a lot. I would love to have, huge family archive that you can use and watch.
I wish I did too. I mean, and I love those kinds of projects. I have a couple friends that are working on books like that right now, and it's so fun to see. And it is interesting how with family archives, sometimes people will have a lot of images for like a very specific time of their life and then not have a lot of images for another time of their life. And I really wonder how having those archives affects their memory. Do they feel like they remember more because there's more pictures of that time? Or like, where is the photographs replacing the actual memories and vice versa? Like, that's something that I always really think about, because sometimes I remember the object of the photograph more than the moment that I was in photographing it.
Probably also with time you build a new story around a picture. It happened to me. And I remember that day in a completely different way, and my parents say different things about the same picture. So we don't know
totally
what is the real one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is like one of the big things I was contending with in my work is photography and memory are both flawed, right? They're not flawed. I mean, they are what they are. But they're limited, let's say. They're coming from a subjective viewpoint. They're only from a specific amount of time. In the case of a photograph, it's just like a fraction of a second. They both fade over time and have a sense of impermanence. And they're not the full lived moment. And so, but I think we're still with photography, even as we're making pictures now, even with your iPhone, like the amount of times that I'm just like, take a picture is like multiple times a day. I'm always trying to preserve and keep it safe and remember and like, oh, save that for later. Or, and so we're just sort of like, we're trying to keep secure the ephemerality of living. And, I'm not going to say that it's futile, because I think it has purpose as we're doing the act of creation or the looking. But I think I was attached to it in a way where I think I was putting a lot more stock in the security of what a photograph could give me and how it can help keep safe my memories or my loved ones or whatever, and having to let all of that go. Yeah, I'd have a different viewpoint on it now.
And Tracy, how was and what was the process to transform this, starting from this trauma that you had? How was and what was the process that you used for transform these images in something that became this book and help you in the process, maybe also of understand that moment better?
Yeah. So my photographic process was I live in Los Angeles and I grew up in Palm Springs, California, which is not that far from here. It's just a few hours. And my family still lives in that area. So my photographic process was to go back home and to visit sites of specific memories, whether that was places that I would go as a kid or places that I would skate or places that I would ride my bike or places that I would play or places that bad things happened. And I would use those as sort of jumping off places to make work. And at first I was trying to be a little more literal about it. Like, okay, in this parking lot, a friend of mine got beat up. I'm going to take a picture of that parking lot. And I was like very sort of rigid about it. And as I did, the pictures, it just like wasn't flowing. They always felt flat. They just didn't carry the meaning that I thought. And so I would get really frustrated and I'd be like, I'm leaving. And as soon as I would like be like, I'm leaving and sort of turn around, behind me, I would see something. As I'm walking back to the car, I would then see something else and be like, oh, what's that? And there was something about being in that space and going through this process of frustration and letting go that then let me be open to seeing things. And it wasn't what I set out to see or set out to remember, but it was working in that feeling space and in that space of remembering that kind of left me open to make something new. And so that took me a little while to recognize that was happening and to then trust that process. but that became sort of my way of making pictures. And so I would then go out and follow the trail of breadcrumbs based on like really specific events in my history. But then making pictures, not necessarily of that thing or of that place, but from more of that psychic space. And sort of, they still carried the same energy and feeling space and or symbology that that I was of the story that I was trying to tell.
Yeah, my psychologist one day told me the most important moment during therapy is when you are in the door, almost saying goodbye to the therapist.
Oh,
that is the moment when you said the most important things. And it reminds me a bit your approach. You go in a place to take a specific pictures and didn't work so much, and then you turn around and you see something.
Yes, go forward like 2 pages, I think. No, maybe back 2 pages to the little house. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about this picture for a second because I think it relates to what we're talking about.
Yes.
This I had in the sort of early stages of this project, I went back to the house that I actually grew up in. And I was sort of sitting outside and I was like lurking like a weird photo person. And this lady came out, just like, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I used to live here. And I just was looking to see, it looks very much the same." And she's like, "Well, do you want to come inside?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes." And I go inside this house and it looked the same from the outside. It was just like a stucco house. And inside, I'm telling you, it was like 10 times smaller than what I remembered. And I was like in shock. I was like, how is this the same? Like the rooms were basically in the same place and it was all the same countertop tile and everything, but it was just so small. And that was kind of why I also referenced Alice in Wonderland earlier, because, she changes size in those stories. And her world changes size. And the last time I had been in this house of my own youth, I was a much smaller person. And so my memories were baked in from this tiny person's subjective viewpoint. And so now seeing it as a changed adult, I saw it from a whole different view. And so it made me really go like, okay, like my memories are not this objective truth that can totally be trusted. Like there is nuance here and things change over time. And what I thought isn't necessarily the whole truth. And so that was in the morning. And then later on that day, I was out photographing and I came upon this tiny, weird little house. And it's a weird size. It's like as an adult, you can't quite stand up in here. But it looks like a house and it has this window. And so it to me became this sort of metaphorical object for that experience of what I had earlier in the day. And that kind of synchronicity and or way of seeing kind of became part of my process. And those things would happen like over and over again. The more that I would show up and the more that I would go out and just sort of put myself into those places, the more things would just unfold in pictures, but just not in any way that I intended them to.
Do you want to speak a bit about other pictures specifically, or?
Yeah, the next picture is sort of go to the next page. Yeah. So this one on the left with the ramp here, this is sort of like a thesis image for me. And I can kind of talk about it because it talks about my autobiography as well. So this is my son, and he is sitting on this. This is a motorcycle ramp, and I had known that this ramp was out there, and I had went to go look for it. And the reason I'd gone to look for it is because as a kid, my father was he rode motorcycles and raced motorcycles, and he had been in an accident and was in a coma for a few years before finally passing. And so I had in all of those photographs that I had lost, I had many pictures of him racing motorcycles. So I just kind of like had this kind of like vision of him as this like cool dude doing cool stuff. And so I knew about this ramp, and so I wanted to go out there. And it's like, I get out there and I'm unloading my stuff from the truck, and my kid is with me because this was during COVID, and so he's like playing on it and stuff. And I'm sort of setting up the camera, and I'm thinking I was actually going to make a picture of the landscape there. I wasn't sure what to do with this actual ramp, and when I turned around and I saw Eli, my son, sitting on the top of this ramp, it was just sort of like, that kind of like Hitchcock moment where the like zoom shifts and you're just like, what am I looking at? And I kind of had this realization moment. I kind of have like goosebumps now thinking about it, where I was like, I'm looking at him. He is me. He is my dad. We are all the same thing. And it's just all right here in front of me. And so that's when I made this picture. And I don't know if you can see, but also on the front surface of it, there's all these bullet holes that are it's all shot up, and there's a detail of that later on in the book, though. I'll show you the detail. So it's also has like all these holes in it in this image. It's for me, it's page 51. We'll come back to that later. So we revisit that later, where there's actual holes in it. But yeah, that, I guess what I'm saying is, this one was a thesis for me, and it's highly specific to my personal story. But in making this work, I didn't necessarily need to like write my memoir or tell my autobiography in like a very specific way. I just wanted to make work for me from that space, and then make the images live in this sort of like new kind of photographic fiction of things that I'm pictures that I'm making. I didn't feel like I needed to be beholden to that story, even though these are specifically coming from my story, if that makes any sense.
And now I have to decide what to ask you, because I want to know something more about some pictures. I want to speak about the fact that these pictures seems to me a bit timeless. Like, I don't know if they are from 2020 something or from, I don't know, like 90, 98. It's a really, really weird feeling. And also I want to ask you, so let's start from this. In this book, there are few human figures, and when they appear, they seems to like elude the viewer. What is the role of that human being in the pictures? Because we have
there's a figure there.
Yeah, there is someone, but I don't know. It's, to me, it's closing this door. Maybe it's opening, I don't know, or just is hiding behind the door. But anyway, we have this one. This is the only one that is a proper portrait. But
he's still pretty obscured.
It is. But it's the only one where at least you can see eyes.
Yeah.
This one the same.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's full.
I mean, I think all of the figures in this work are my real family members, like the male adult, that one. Let's talk about this one in just a second. I'll tell you how that came to be. It's my family members. It's my son. It's my uncle. They kind of like came into the work accidentally, like I was saying with the Eli on the ramp picture. I wasn't going to make a picture there to make a picture of him and or on that ramp. That just kind of like happened. This picture here with these legs, when I was making this picture, I was making a picture of the structure, and I actually did not realize that he was in it. My uncle, this is my uncle. And when I was looking at the negatives later, I was like, what the hell? What's in there? And I'm like, oh my God, there's like a ghost in my picture. And that to me was like, oh, that makes total sense. Like, I'm like being haunted. I am chasing these ghosts or evading these monsters, or, that's what's going on for me psychologically, I guess you could say, throughout this work. And so it became an entry point. I think these figures became an entry point for a child protagonist, an adult antagonist, throughout this kind of like loose narrative that I was creating, without being like overtly about my son. Like, this work isn't about my son. This is about me. This work isn't about my uncle. They're not about them as people. And so I was careful to keep them distant or obscured, also because of the sort of like, you can't quite grasp them.
All the time that I see probably your son, I think, also in this one, for example, and maybe I'm totally wrong. I'm just talking randomly, let's say, but I feel some fragility. Also in the one of the ramp, it's in a dangerous position. Can also be a bit risky because can fall down from there. And all the time that I see adults, they are a bit, maybe it's not the right word, but a bit threatening in some way. I don't know. It's not a place where I want to go in, for example. And the same, you have this shadow that it's not quiet. Like,
I mean,
and the same all the time that there is an adult. It's you want to know something more about it, but you cannot. It's going away, disappearing, or hiding.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I think in my personal story, after the death of my father, there was a not so great experience with a stepdad, and things just didn't get better after that. And so I think that there were imposing male figures in my life moving forward. And so like that sort of sense of threat, whether that's from a specific person or sort of like this general sense of threat, was like a pervasive feeling for me growing up. And how do you escape that or transcend that? That was sort of like my mission in life, I guess. And so there are pictures that are saying that are more overtly with the figures in them, and or more quietly, I guess, with some of the more object pointing photos or some of the landscapes as well.
Yeah, also here, for example, it's someone, I didn't find one clear images of someone. And I think also works in the sense that you don't have a specific person, like you don't have a specific monster.
Yeah, no. And there's not one that we reveal in any overt way either. Because I feel like they're also the monsters are lurking within ourselves as well. And so I feel like it's not something that we can directly point to and say, this is the thing, this is the guy, this is the, it's like, it's very amorphous, and it's outside of us and within us. And so it's more of like a psychological space. We have an avatar for it in some of these photographs, but it's only delicately pointing at it, because I don't think, seeing one specific person and calling that out is actually the solve here. Yeah, there's these footsteps in the bottom of this image here that are sort of like, some of these images can be read so many different ways. And I love hearing other people's perspectives as I show the work. Some people are like, oh, it's like someone walked off into the distance, or it could be like, well, someone's coming towards you, or this could be a self-portrait where these are my footsteps here at the vantage point of making this picture. There's so many different ways that we can look at all of these images, and that ambiguity and that openness is like really lovely to me. Like, I love when people have all kinds of different reads on specific images or specific takeaways from the book, and I want people to see themselves or be able to insert their own stories like into these pictures. Like, that's why I wanted to leave them open in this way. And also the absence of the water. I mean, water is like a vital resource that we need for our daily survival, and our bodies are made of it. And to not have water, and to grow up in a place that's so devoid of water. It's, it's a very parched existence where you're, kind of fighting for survival. But there's the promise of it and the evidence of it in this dry lake bed, especially with the like cracks in the earth. Like, water comes there and water has been there. So it's possible.
This fact of this timeless picture is something that you search or just happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't overtly do so, but I didn't really go into the heart of downtown where there's like a bunch of Teslas either. So I think my experience of growing up in the desert is we lived kind of more on the edge of town. It wasn't sort of right in the middle. And so it was more true to my experience to kind of be in the more fringe places. And the desert has a lot to offer in its like making things look timeless in that there's a lot of sort of defunct houses and decrepit spaces. But also the sun and the fades everything, and the wind sort of wears things down. And so everything kind of has this sort of like dusty veneer on it, and sort of takes away the shininess of like what modern constructions and objects look like. So even if it's something relatively new, it ends up looking kind of old.
Yeah, it's true. And anyway, you have stuff like this one that like it's a VHS, like it's something that barely you can see right now in a city.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that this is the lost world, this tape.
Yeah, of course.
So in a way, it's like it's referencing a whole nother time that's like prehistoric. And so the timelessness of things are out of time, I guess would be another way of putting it, where it's like time is kind of folding back on itself, like kind of like what we were saying in the beginning with like how memory works.
And how was the process of taking the pictures? So like, did you use digital or analog?
All of this work is analog. Yeah, it's all 4x5. So I'm working with a view camera. Mm-hmm. So it's very slow and I don't make a lot of pictures. And the pictures are, it's like a cumbersome tool, especially with a lot of like hiking to different areas and you're working in the sun and it's sweaty and you're under a dark cloth. So, but I think doing things in a way, in like a hard way, I'm a pretty physical person. And so I think doing a very physically embodied process and something that had a lot of structure around it, like really helped me. I think working digitally would have made it like kind of too easy to make a lot of pictures fast. And I think doing this slowly over time with a lot of technical layers in between and time in between of getting film back and then scanning it and then all the things that you have to do before you actually even see what you got, I think was really part of making this work. And especially in editing and sequencing, I had a lot of time to be with the work in a different way. And you're also literally seeing things upside down and backwards when you're looking at a view camera. So I think that really helped subconsciously kind of turn things upside down and look at things differently.
So do you think all the process, the fact of waiting, change your relation with the picture itself? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, there's pictures that I would get back in the beginning. I'm like, yes, totally nailed it. This one's awesome. And then like give it like a year later and I'd be like, oh no, that one's not it. And there were other ones that were quieter and just a little off. And those are the ones that would kind of creep up on me. And really have more meaning than the ones that I sort of felt satisfied with in the beginning. And that happened very many times. So I think time really does help me, at least.
The desert landscape play a crucial role in the book, in the whole book. How did the landscape shape your understanding of your memories and experience in general? Well,
100% it did. I mean, the desert for me is both a container and a character in this work. I mean, from my own upbringing, I'm a product of the desert. It's like in me. My lungs have breathed desert air. It's like both beautiful, but also harsh and unforgiving. There's no refuge. It's almost like so vast that it's claustrophobic. Especially at night, I think we can go to like one of the light pictures. Like the edges of the space, like there's nothing in the background. Like go to page, yeah, that one. So like there's nothing in the background back there that's going to emit or reflect light. So I feel like you could just fall off the edges of the earth. Like you don't know what's out there. It's just like this big, uncertain, unknown in the vastness of night. And it's just sort of like, or on the figure on the left, you're floating in this like black void space. So I feel like the desert specifically does interesting things at night. And you're not dealing with the sun. But, you know, during the day, depending, you know, it could be at high noon where things are, that next one with the ram and the...
This one?
You can, I think it was right before that, actually. Yeah, this, it's page 66 on mine. Yeah. So like these are like this one on the right is a grinding mortar from the Native Americans. They would use those and that is only taken at like high noon, and that's the way that I can make it so that the shadow would go straight down into the hole in the rock surface. But you can tell that it's just like the light is just like obliterates everything. Like it's so oppressive. But then at the edges of the day, it can be really soft and really sweet and really kind of cozy, and with these pastel skies. So it like for me, the desert light is like such a special thing, and it's so ever changing. And so those are all different ways that I relate to it at different times of day. Like if you look at page 25, sorry to jump around here.
Yeah, perfect. 25. Is it this one or this one?
No, on page.
Sorry.
No, my PDF.
No, 25. Sorry, 25.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
so like this is like
I have 24 and 26.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's the next one. It's this one. So like right when the sun goes down, the wind dies too, and it just becomes really quiet. And there's like this really gradation of pastels in the skies, and the shadows get really soft and a little bit blue, and it just becomes like this really peaceful place. And the animals kind of come out, like that's when the lizards are out. And it just gets like, I don't know, it's just like really peaceful and beautiful. So you have these like emotional fluctuations from this like sort of like harsh pounding sun that you can't get refuge from. And it's just like baking you to this like soft place where your body can kind of like relax. And then it gets kind of like, you know, it can be kind of scary at night. So it's like kind of all over the place. But the desert for sure is like, you know, the central character of this work. It's like a love story to the desert and a scared story too. And also in the flaws of it, like I think in that back to that page 25, it's like really beautiful, these perfect dunes and this pastel sky. But then you have all these tracks in the front where things have been trodden on and things have been ridden over and they've been trespassed or traversed. And I think all of it is the whole picture. So you can't just have this only perfect beauty. You have the real stuff of living too. Like our humanity is everywhere because we're the ones looking.
There is some other specific pictures you want to speak about. Okay.
Yeah, we can talk about like, or go back a few. Number 19 is always kind of a fun one. This one, I don't know if you noticed, but it has like a counterpart later. This image is actually, it's my uncle's truck. You know, he's got this device here that is can be a form of safety, or maybe it's like something constraining and dangerous. Like, we don't know. But then later on in the work, we revisit this from another perspective. Number 69 is the
and
number.
It's during the night, right? Or not?
Yeah, exactly. And we come back to it, and this time it's disconnected. And is that a good thing? Are we free, or has something escaped? Is something coming for us? Are we getting out of here? The door is left open. And again, we have that kind of black space in the background. So I like to have this sort of like point counterpoint set up in the narrative that kind of comes back around in a different way. And that's how images work for me. I know that I'm talking a lot about all of this symbolism and meaning that I'm ascribing to all of these forms in the pictures. And that's how I look at pictures, and that's how I make pictures. But I also know that for many people, it's very different. And they might see either a different story in there, a different meaning in there, or they're just looking at them more aesthetically and looking at them for light and form. And it's all okay. I'm just sort of like relating to them the way that I do.
But I found it really interesting to speak about how the pictures born.
That's cool to hear. I mean, I think that, each one has like a story, because there was like a story related to the creation, or there's a story of what it means to me. Yeah, and it's fun to share it, and it's fun to talk about it, and it's fun to hear how other people relate to. Every time I talk about this work, my own work, I'm sort of like, oh, I have a new insight. And so I'm like, am I making this up as I go? And maybe I am, but that's okay, I think.
Now, also, I have this not so small problem. That the problem is that I never learn English properly. Like, I just learn English traveling. So my English is pretty poor. So there is a lot of things that I would like to say, but I'm not able to do it. So.
Well, I think you're doing a fabulous job, and I commend you for learning another language, especially coming from an American point of view. Like, we're so reliant on the rest of the world speaking English, and I think that we don't give enough appreciation for how much everyone else, allows for us to communicate with them when we're not reciprocating. I don't know Italian.
Yeah. So I would love to speak in Italian. It could be so much easier. Like, it would be amazing. I can say a lot of things, and maybe it's probably that I have to speak in English. But also, for example, in this picture on the left, that is probably your son again, right?
Yeah.
Also, I love the fact that another time you can see a kind of fragility. The hood. What is the name of the dress that he?
Oh, yeah. We call that like a hoodie. Yeah.
What?
We call it like a hoodie or like hoodie. A sweatshirt. Okay. But the cool way to say it would be hoodie, I guess.
That one. Yeah. It's really, it's dreamy. Like, he has stars like everywhere. It's really something that from the childhood, and it's walking in the direction of the dark. So there is this feeling of something that something can happen.
For sure. And is it that he's walking away from us? In the sequence preceding that there is this sort of like truck escape, and then something's been set on fire. And is he the one that's burning it down? Is he walking back into the fire? It's sort of like, I think a lot of the sequencing in this book can be read left to right or right to left. So is he, if you kind of read the sequence both directions, kind of in the spirit of the memory works both ways kind of thing, he's sort of like walking onto the scene into the fire, and then the truck is his getaway car. Or, there's a lot of different ways that this whole sequence works. But to me, they work together.
Yeah, for sure. But also your point of view, a lot of time it's a bit like in this picture, I feel the viewer is trying to hide himself.
Yeah, and he's like right there, but can he see me? He's looking the other way. Yeah, exactly. And I do love all of these framing devices of windows. There's lots of windows and doors and ways of looking through things. And some of them are framings, or some of them are portals. Like all of these are examples of that. Where are we safe inside? Are we good? We're trying to see outside, but also the inside. In the one on the left, the inside is scarier than outside.
It is.
Most of the pictures in this work are outside, because I think for me, my upbringing, like the outside was the place that I was myself. I didn't feel as good inside, and so I would always just seek refuge in the fringe places and going out. And so we're usually outside, and we're in these framing devices of windows and doors, or some sort of holes. They're all sort of like portals, and some of them are more open or not. And I look at them as like ways through, and or sometimes they're blocked, as in this one. This one's boarded up, so we can't get through. But some of them go down into black, and it's sort of like a portal transcendence to another place. Or here we have this one, which is this sort of like, it feels like magic. I don't know if you can tell, but on the right hand side, there's a big stick that's holding this door up. And I was just walking along this path. I was out with my uncles, and we were shooting guns. And so they there's stuff out there that people go out there to this area to shoot guns with. And someone had brought it out there, I guess, or it was just out in the middle of the desert, was this door. I just found it while walking down this road. And I was like, oh, let's shoot this. And so we set it up. And I was like, before we shoot it, let me make a picture. and then I wanted to make a picture with like one bullet hole in it. And so we set it up. I made one picture, and then we shot it with a gun. And of course, it obliterated all the glass. There was no hole in it. So I was like, okay, well, that was the picture. So that's the one. But I do kind of love how it ended up looking like it's like kind of magically floating here with this like portal to like another dimension that's almost the same as where you're at, but it's slightly different. And you can, if you look closely, see that it's not magic. But I like to believe in magic.
But it's really beautiful, the fact that around it's full of color. It's almost like something is changing in this dimension.
Yeah.
With all this color around. And in this one, there is a portal, a proper one, and can works. But if you cross it, you are just in the same space.
Yeah, I love this. Yep, totally.
So sometimes that the fact that also if you do something, if you act, it's not always so easy to escape from a problem or from a monster or something. Like not all the portal and not all the paths can drive you in a safe place.
100%, exactly. Like you're just gonna end up in the same thing.
Yeah.
In the same spot. Yeah.
Like, and it's not your fault.
Yeah. This one was a skate spot that I used to go to when I was younger. And it was a way to get from the sort of like area where I lived down into the town without having to go on the surface street. You would kind of go through these like kind of like water tunnel things. And as I was back here, yeah, this to me is like this sort of direction choice, Yeah, 100%. But it's also like this another container for water that's not there. But the reason that this exists is because when the water does come, it floods. It's called flash flooding, and it's like a phenomenon in the desert where the sand doesn't have like dirt, like actual soil, and so the sand can't soak up the water. Mm-hmm. So it cools very fast and then becomes flooding very quickly. And so that's why they have these big water canals for these. And so you're not really allowed to be down here. And there's lots of signs about not being down here because if it did rain, it's a highly dangerous place to be. And so there's a lot of it that's going on for that. But just in the most basic form, in the picture itself, it's just this sort of like feat of engineering and architecture framed within this like very natural space, and it's creating this sort of like natural Y in the road where we have to make a choice one way or the other.
And Tracy, why did you decide not to include text in the work?
That was like a really hard choice. I guess we talked about it a little bit earlier, as in like if I wanted to do an interview, well, I didn't have some of the people to do interviews with. If I wanted to do journal entries, all my journals were burned in that same fire. If all of my I was thinking about doing drawings. There's so many ways that I thought about approaching text in this work, and I ultimately I had written anecdotes of things that happened as a kid, and I just felt like everything every time I paired text with it, it just became too explicit and explanative, and took away the openness and ambiguity for the image to do its thing. And I think it was a form of like kind of when I set out to make the work, and I had this kind of like rigid idea of like what I wanted to recreate or make. I kind of had to like let that go and be with what is, and like go where the pictures told me to go, and listen to what they showed me. And I think I'm sort of like passing that on to the viewer in a way. Yeah, I think I chose to do less and to leave it more open. And if it's a little unmooring, if it's a little ambiguous, if it's a little mysterious, if people are a little bit lost or don't know what they're looking at, there's not a lot of guidance through verbal text. Maybe that's okay. I think it takes a little bit more effort as a viewer to just sit with the pictures and feel what they feel about them, or to make connections. There's lots of clues throughout the book, but they don't need to decode the story. It doesn't have to be about something so specific for it to work on a feeling level or a subconscious level, or to evoke a response in someone. So that was my hope, and that's kind of where I ended up. Through a lot of trial and error and trying to figure out what was best, and that's where I landed, to kind of use that restraint. And also it kind of mirrors my own autobiography, in that without that sort of strong parental guidance, I didn't have a lot of explanation, or growing up, I was sort of making it up from what I could gather. So that also mirrored some of the actual experience.
And
that was a long answer. Sorry.
No, yeah, I think you explained like pretty well. I felt when I looked to like through the book the first time, something really close to what you are explaining right now.
But you didn't have that setup, like you didn't know my story in any specific way, and you were responding to it.
No, like I read it.
Yeah.
That there was this trauma, and of course it's not super important to understand what kind of trauma. Like a trauma, it's a trauma. So, but of course, then you start to see all this human being far away. Always a bit threatening, or like this. My feeling watching this, I told you, it was like, okay, I'm hiding myself, and I hope it doesn't turn around.
Yeah,
it's really powerful. I think like if you turn around, I'm fucked. And and it's weird because I don't know this man. Probably it's again like your uncle, and it's a super sweet man. I don't know, but the feeling of the pictures is quite strong. And the same with this, with the feeling of fragility and the idea of escape from something or hiding from something. I think it works in a really clear way. Also, this one is amazing. Like you have a way out, but doesn't lead anywhere, and also it's broken. So
for sure.
So sad.
For sure. For sure. Well, I'm glad to hear that you had a response to the work. That's my hope. I think ultimately we're making work for our own creative process, and then we can't control where it goes from there. You put something in the world, and the way that it gets picked up is, different people have different vantage points, and I'm happy for that.
Yeah, it's true. And Tracy, is there any image that you consider the core of this project?
Yes, I think we talked about that one in the beginning. I think that would be the kind of Eli on the ramp one. I think was maybe that sort of like thesis one. And there are other ones that speak to more specific things, but I think that one kind of has everything in it. It is the desert as the container. It is the character of this adolescent. In this case, it's a boy, but in this precarious position. And there's also like the swoop of this ramp. I don't know. For some reason, I also think that in a way, he's going to get launched into something. And what is that? I don't know. It's like he's going to get launched into space, into his future. And I think that all of it's in there for me. I think in this image, not to put it all in one image, but I think, yeah. I think that's the one that sort of sets it up for me.
I understand why. There is a specific music you suggest to listen watching this book.
Yeah, I have thought about this before, and there's two parts of this answer. One is no, there's not like a soundtrack or a song that goes with this work, but there is sound, and that is the sound of the desert, and that is primarily wind, and then in the evenings it kind of dies down into hearing this sort of more of the kind of animal life that's in this desert. And I think that would be the soundtrack would be more of like a ambient environmental sound than it would be any one song. It's funny, we've just we have an installation of this work at Deadbeat Club, who is the publisher of this work. We didn't really talk that much about them so far, but they're awesome, and they're great collaborators, and a big part of making this book happen, and I'm super grateful. But we also have an installation of this work in their headquarters in downtown LA, which is really great. If you're in LA, come see it. But one of the things that we've just added is I did a collaborative thing with Eli, my son, where we built these devices out of vintage phones that when you pick up the receiver, you hear in there different sounds. So one area of the installation, you pick up the phone and it's like a howling desert wind. And in another area, you pick up the phone and it's footsteps, like kind of like walking in the desert and crunching on things. And, are those my footsteps? Are those, is something stalking something? You don't know. And then there's another one where you pick up and it's sort of like this, like a radio, like searching through like an FM radio where you're trying to find a station, but it can't quite find the song, and it almost lands on it and then it moves on and it comes back and it just can't quite land. And so these phones are strewn throughout the space, and you can pick them up and kind of listen to that sound as you're looking at the work on the wall. And so that's a sort of a new addition to the show. And that is a very roundabout way of answering your question. So sorry about that.
No, it's perfect. I love it. It's work. Like, of course, I ask music, but sound, it fits better sometimes, and I love it. And
cool.
Did you discover something doing this project that can help a young photographer to approach photography?
Yeah. I mean, I guess my advice or what people have told me is just keep shooting, like shoot through it. Like you feel like you're hitting a roadblock and that's just the time to not quit. Like if you keep making work, the work will show you the way. And I have sort of taken that to like the most literal end where I will like write to myself, but I'm writing to the pictures. Like I literally will write to the pictures and be like, what are you trying to tell me in my own hand? Obviously so cheesy, but I'm saying this, I can't believe it. But and the pictures will write back to me. And so I'm like having a dialogue with the pictures, like through like a journaling exercise or something. So I guess that's 2 points is keep going, even though it feels like you're not getting somewhere. That is precisely when you're getting somewhere. And that the more that you can have a direct dialogue with the pictures themselves, whether that's talking to yourself or writing to yourself or just pausing enough to just listen, the pictures will tell you what they're doing and they'll show you where to go next. And that sounds so cheesy. Like I totally know that sounds cheesy, but I'm just saying.
No, but it's true. I think maybe, of course, like I ask advice each time in each episode. I'm sure that not all works with everybody. And probably you have to pick the advice that fits better for you. But at the same time, I think there is a good percentage of true in each advice because it's true. Like a lot of time are the pictures that tell you a lot of things more than the thing you can thought.
Yeah,
it's just like that. Like there is nothing. Yeah, it's true. And the very last question: can you suggest us a book to have in the future episode?
Yes, there's a book. It's not out yet, and I don't know the exact date that it's coming out, but it will be coming out maybe later this summer. But I really love the work, and I'm excited for this to be a book. The artist is Elijah Howe, and the book is called Mike, and it will be with TIS Books. And Mike is Elijah's father, who was the lead singer in a metal band.
Wow.
And recently passed away by suicide. And the book is a mix of archival images from his time in this band, along with family images of Elijah, the artist, growing up. And it's all very rock and roll and wild. And then there are these recent images that Elijah also made of his father right before his death that are really tender and somehow very prescient. And so it's all very complex. And it's this experience of like identity and memory and grief and this sort of persona of a person versus the actual person and sort of fatherhood. It's all very complex and all very beautiful, but also just like crazy. And just, yeah, like I said, very rock and roll. And so I'm very excited for that work to come out. And I've been watching that work come together for a little while now. And so I'm excited for it to be out in the world. But yeah, it's called Mike is the title, and it'll be with TIS Books.
And yeah, thank you so much, Tracy. It was really beautiful. I enjoy a lot speaking with you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I really am so excited to be included in this series. And I'm really grateful for more dialogue and sharing photo books. And the way that you're doing it is also like very cool, where we can hear the artist speak as we're viewing the images at the same time. And so I think that you're doing something very, it's a great evolution of a way to have dialogue around work. And so keep going, dude. It's great.
Thanks. It's just a book presentation in the end. It's really simple.
Yeah.
but
I mean, the simple things are the best things. And like, it's just really great. So thank you.
Yeah, I was just, what the fuck? There is not like a book. Like, the fact is this. If you are able to go to a book presentation because it's in your city, it's amazing. But if not,
yeah,
like, of course, like, you're not gonna to see a photographer speaking about a book after 4 years, for example. And it's a pity because I would love to listen photographers to speak about some works. And also, I also hope that some photographer allow me to do episode about books that maybe came out 10 years ago, because this is what I really would love to do.
That'd be so cool. Yeah.
New books, of course, but also...
grateful.
No, thanks, really. It's
Super cool.
Thank you so much, really, really, tanto. In Italian. Grazie mille.
Bye. Thanks.
Okay, thanks so much to everybody, and hope you enjoy it. And Tracy was amazing. So, perfect. See you the next time. Ciao, Tracy.
Bye. Ciao.